Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're peeling back the layers on a place you've probably seen on a postcard, Trinidad's most famous beach, Maracas Bay. We're going to find out what really makes it tick. Okay, so right off the bat, you need to know that Maracas isn't just a beach. It's a cultural landmark. It's the beach that everyone, locals and tourists alike, talks about. It's basically the essential Trinidadian coastal experience. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at that postcard image. Then we'll talk about the road to get there and the whole ritual of a visit. After that, we'll get into the vibe and the rules you gotta know. And finally, we'll dive into some of the hidden currents, the stuff you don't always hear about. All right, first things first, let's talk about that image that makes Maracas so iconic. You know the one, the absolute classic Caribbean dream. Just look at it. The appeal is just undeniable, right? You've got this perfect crescent of white sand, and it's framed by these incredibly lush green mountains that basically rise straight up from the beach. It creates this stunning kind of enclosed world. It's gorgeous. But here's the thing. Getting to paradise is a huge part of the story. The Maracas experience isn't just about plopping down on the sand. Oh no, it's a whole ritual, a very specific, 3-step journey. So yeah, it's not just a trip, it's a pilgrimage. You've got the drive, the stop at the lookout, and of course the food. These 3 things, they make up what locals call a lime, which is just, hanging out. And this whole process is a big deal. It supports a whole little economy of vendors all along the route. And that adventure, it kicks off on the North Coast Road. Now, it's a beautiful drive, for sure, but it can get pretty intense. We're talking a narrow, winding road where, landslips can sometimes knock it down to a single lane. You definitely have to be paying attention. And that brings us to the final, and non-negotiable step. You have to eat bacon shark. As this YouTuber puts it, any come Maracas you must have a bacon shot. That's coming and Maracas mashed together. Seriously, if you make the trip, you have to get one. It's this amazing sandwich, fried shark on this fluffy fried bread called bake, and you just load it with toppings. It's so much more than a meal. It's basically the country's unofficial national dish. And it all started right here. Okay, so you've done the drive, you've seen the lookout, you've got your bacon shark. Now you're finally on the sand. But to really fit in, you've got to understand the unique culture and, the rules of the beach itself. Right, so the vibe is super lively, it's social, it's all about liming, as they say. It's laid back for sure, but don't let that chill atmosphere fool you. There are definitely rules, some are social, some are actual laws, and you really need to know them. Okay, this is super important. Let's talk about what to wear. Your swimsuit, that's strictly for the sand and the water. The second you step off the beach, like to cross the road to get that famous bacon shark, you absolutely have to put on a cover-up. And just so you know, topless or nude bathing is a big no-no, totally illegal. Same goes for wearing any kind of camouflage print. That's a law for civilians, and they are serious about it. And it's not just about what you're wearing. There are some real safety warnings to keep in mind. First, the rip currents here can be powerful. You'll see lifeguards using red flags to mark off the safer swimming zones, and you should definitely stay within them. Also, after a heavy rain, the whole area can flood, making it tough to get in or out. And finally, there have been some issues with unregulated vendors, something the government is actively working on. So, as you can see, there's a lot more to Maracas than just that perfect postcard image. And the deeper you go, the more you find these challenges that most visitors, honestly, never even see. Which leads to the big question, right? What's really hiding beneath the surface of this beautiful bay? Well, it brings us to 2 pretty big issues that complicate that simple story of just sun, sand, and snacks. One is ethical, and the other is environmental. So first up, let's talk about the dish that made this place famous, bacon shark. Here's the dilemma. You have this beloved cultural tradition on one hand, and on the other, a massive global conservation crisis for sharks. Promoting a dish that's centered on a vulnerable species, it's becoming a really big problem. And to put that in perspective, look at this number, 100 million. That's roughly how many sharks are pulled from the world's oceans every single year. When you realize that 1/3 of all shark species are facing extinction, it really makes you question whether promoting shark consumption through tourism is a sustainable idea. But there is some good news here. The market itself is starting to adapt. Because shark is getting scarce and more expensive, a lot of vendors are now using more sustainable fish, like kingfish or catfish, instead. So you could order a bacon shark today and actually be eating a bacon kingfish, which is just as delicious and, way more responsible. Okay, the second big hidden issue is water quality. Look, this is something the Institute of Marine Affairs has pointed out for a while now. They found recurring problems with the water, and the main culprit is sewage contamination. It's coming from a few different places, including runoff from the nearby Maracas River. So, what does this mean for you? Well, the big takeaway is that water safety here isn't just about watching out for rip currents. You also have to be aware of the contamination risk. The advice from experts is pretty clear. It's best to avoid swimming right after a heavy rain, and definitely steer clear of the area where the Maracas River flows into the bay, which is over on the western end of the beach. So, at the end of the day, is Maracas Bay paradise? Yes, but it's a complicated one. And knowing about all this stuff, the rules, the environmental issues, the whole picture, it doesn't have to spoil the postcard. In fact, I think it completes it. It gives you a much richer and a much more honest picture of what this truly iconic place is all about.